I have one last question for you, if you don't mind. I feel like I have so many other questions. We'll be in this conversation all day.
Right.
Um, is My question is about the African diaspora,
Yeah.
right? We're not a monolith. We're not all alike as separate
Yeah.
African cultures and communities. Have you noticed any differences between, let's say, Black Caribbeans, African Americans, Africans proper from the continent, right?
Right.
Like, have you noticed any differences between our groups in terms of our approach to counseling, our willingness
Mhm.
to engage in counseling?
Yeah, yeah, that's a good question. Okay, so that's a good question, and it's very specific. I have noticed a difference. I've also noticed a similarity.
Mhm.
Similarity. We're all struggling with racial trauma.
Yeah.
Difference, and even in that, is that African American are more apt to say yes, this is it, while
Mm.
Africans and Caribbean are like, I'm not sure what you're talking about. Like, you sure it's not like I just need to work harder? Like, it's harder for us to take that in, right? And also for African Americans and for Africans, one of, especially younger Africans and Caribbeans, one of the things is when we're able to label it, name it, there's this like release
Yeah.
of, oh my goodness, this is not just an issue that I'm dealing with, or there's nothing wrong with me. So I
Yeah.
need to figure out how to deal better,
Hmm.
right, with corporate America, with like being in school, being in academia, whatever it is that you're working on. So that's that difference, right? One difference that I've noticed is that younger African Americans and even older African Americans are more open to therapy, right? While and they will come as individuals or as couples to therapy. Even as older couples, they will come to therapy. While for Africans and Caribbeans, particularly Africans, it's usually the younger generation that comes to therapy, and
Hmm.
even then, it's kind of like, I'm the first one in my family doing this. We don't do this. But the fact that like
Yeah.
you're Nigerian, I think I
Yeah.
should try this out. And usually when they do come, right, the issue is connected to family of origin
Mhm.
issue. We've had a lot of like, which is not surprising, at the same time surprising. We've had a lot of adult children and their parents coming into therapy,
Yes.
which is like really amazing,
Hmm.
to see this older African parents coming into therapy and trying
Yeah.
to understand what's going on, because they know what it is. It's just, I mean, because we do it as people, we just have a name for it.
Hmm.
We have a name for it in terms of coming to therapy, but we
Yeah.
do it. So having to do it as adult parents with their adult children, it feels weird at first,
Yeah.
because they're always like, because they see, I know they see me as part of their kids too, and I'm like, wait, I'm the professional here. So that's that difference that I see between like African American and
Yeah.
Caribbean American and African Americans.
So I'm curious then about racial trauma, right?
Hmm.
Might it be, and this is just my hypothesis in listening to you, might it be that when you talk about uh, uh, African continent families
Yeah,
and Caribbean African families,
yeah.
um, it might, is there some resistance around recognizing the racial trauma because they're a little bit more removed from it culturally
Yeah,
than African Americans are? We live in this country. It's a predominantly white country. It's race as an issue is inescapable. But
yeah,
when you talk about predominantly black countries outside of this
yeah.
experience, there's this unconscious notion that we haven't experienced that, and we are much farther removed from
From
the experience of oppression and racism. And
yeah,
so it's harder to accept that it still operates in our lives.
yeah, for sure. It's very difficult to accept it, and
Yeah.
particularly when I work with Africans or Caribbeans who are in corporate America.
Mm.
It's very difficult for them to accept it.
Yeah.
They know something is going on, they just don't know what it is,
Yeah.
right? They feel like, well, why is it about my character? Why
Yes.
is it
Yes.
about me? I'm doing everything I need to be doing. Why is that not enough? And so like I have to slowly in our work really help them understand not only what the impact of it is on them emotionally, what the impact of it is on them physically. So I
Yeah.
actually start with the physical
Yeah.
impact first and then go out to the emotional and the mental and the relational impact of it. So then they're able to see it like, wow, like
Yeah.
this is not about me. This has to do with racism.
Yeah.
Right. So
And
this also impacts me.
it's acculturation.
Mm-hmm.
It's you've lived in this country maybe for a long time,
Right.
but there's still elements of the country that you have not acculturated to, that you haven't
Exactly.
been, because you might be coming from a wealthy background, a wealthy
Right.
community, you might
Yeah.
come from a privileged socioeconomic status,
Mm-hmm.
educationally, and so you haven't had to confront this before,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Especially if you're coming from corporate America
Yeah.
and your country of origin. Then you come here and you're just as competent as everybody else.
Yeah.
You've been an executive
Yeah.
everywhere else you've gone.
Yeah.
So this is completely foreign to you.
It's totally foreign to you.
Yes. Can I ask one last question?
Mm-hmm.
How do you find that other racial groups are responding to racial trauma in your practice?
Mm. So one of the things that is also particular to our practice is we see a lot of mixed race couples, so
Mhm.
black and white, particularly black and
Mhm.
white couples. So we talk about racial trauma a lot because intentionally either the white partner or the black partner search us out.
Yeah.
And we really want to have a conversation about race. And when they can have it, it becomes a challenge.
Mhm.
So it's from people who are open to having it to people who are not open to having
Mhm.
it. And it's also more than just saying this is racial trauma. It's really trying to understand how it impacts their relationship,
Yeah.
how it shows up, and how they relate to each other. I think with Latinx and Asian community is really trying to really help them the ways in which they also experience racial trauma in a
Mhm.
different way.
Mhm.
I mean, there are Afro Latinx and
Mhm.
Latino people that we also need to talk about how race,
Very
right,
big. Thank
shows
you.
up in their family of
Thank you.
origin, in the ways
Thank
in which they relate to each other as individuals, as couple, as family,
you.
and
Mhm.
how like every aspect of people of color, we're all dealing with it. We just experience it in a different way,
Right.
right? So like for Asian people, really being the model quote unquote minority,
Mhm.
like how does that show up?
Yeah.
Um, and how they do the work that they do, whether at work or at school, how society sees them, right? How they show up in their relationship with themselves and with others in their lives and other people of color as well. So,
Mhm.
so we talk about that too.
Yes. Look, Dr. Wilson, thank you so much
You're
for
welcome.
everything that you shared. I mean, again, I really feel like, and as is the case with all of the people that we've been interviewing so far, I really hope that you continue to be blessed in your work and
Thank
that you
you.
continue to do the good that you're doing for all of the communities and the peoples that you help.
Mhm.
Um, it's just amazing, and it's amazing to talk to other mental health professionals, especially professionals of color,
Mhm.
um, because I feel so inspired, and I feel like we're doing our part to make the world better.
Yes.
And I'm
Yes.
not exaggerating, right? We're literally trying household by household by
Yeah.
household
Yeah.
to make the communities that we live in
Yeah.
better for all of us. And
Yeah.
I just want to thank you for the work that you're doing and all of the wisdom that you shared. And I really do hope that people continue to reach out to you and make use of you as a resource. And I wish you much, much, much continued success. And
Thank
and
you.
I can't wait for my next email begging you for something.
Well, I thoroughly appreciate just really being interviewed by you, Dr. Ray. Thank you for the
Thank
work
you.
that you're doing as well, because you are right. It's household by household,
Yeah.
generation by generation. Like
Mhm.
even if we have one person in therapy or a couple or a family, we're changing a whole generation of people.
Yes. That's
Thank
absolutely
you.
true. I try to tell people sometimes therapy is like your rich friend. If
Yeah.
you have a rich friend, You want to know everything about how they made all of that money.
That's
And
true.
a lot of times, especially in families of color, they're skeptical of counseling, and it only takes one person to go.
Yeah.
And they say, oh, my family would never come, and they don't want to do it, and this
Yeah.
and that, and nobody's interested, and they think I'm wasting my time.
Yeah.
And I say, don't worry.
Yeah.
God willing, when you start to improve and get better, and you're more confident, and you're more successful and active and assertive, and whatever you're here working
Yeah.
on, when they start to see that improve, they're going to get curious.
Exactly.
And they know the one thing that you're doing that's different from what they're doing is you're coming here.
Exactly.
And inevitably, you find the aunt comes in, the grandmother comes
Yep.
in, the father comes in, the brother comes in, the cousin comes in, and you know, and again, it's community work.
It is. It is. And it's the ripple effect of that. Like when one person changes, the other people change as well. So
So they get the
thanks for
benefit.
your work.